The regular meeting of the South San Antonio Independent School District Board of Trustees will come to order. Today is Wednesday, October 19th. The time is 6:30 p.m. Could I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Camila Parra,
Present.
Mrs. Stacy Estrada, present. Mrs. Angelina Osteguin,
Present.
Mr. Trinidad Mata,
Present.
Mr. Carlos Longoria,
Present.
Mrs. Leticia Guerra, here. Mrs. Helen Mandel Crater, here.
Thank you. At this time, could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Mr. Longoria, will lead us.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. Okay, let me just remind everybody, under citizens to be heard, you're allowed 3 minutes. Mr. Longoria, the VP will give you a pink card when you have 1 minute remaining to speak. Thank you. I think our first speaker is Mr. Bernabe Lugo.
Thank you for having me today. I'm here as a parent coach, but I want to thank the board for this forum and the opportunity to just share my heart with working with kids in the district. Those who know me, I'm a big Bobcat fan. Okay, I didn't get to graduate from from South San, but I did get my GED and went to graduate from Carnegie University. But I've been raised here in the South San town. You know, all the neighborhoods I know, I ran up and down those streets playing, with kids out in the street. But I am in the district, but what I'm here to talk to you about today, after thanking everybody, is that there's a need, and that's what prompted me to step up, because I see a void with our baseball programs. Every time I turn around in recent time, I see our baseball programs getting smashed by teams like Laredo high schools, those high schools in Corpus, and everywhere around Northside School. They come into our place, and it's not even there's no contest. And there's been a void, there's a lack of training, and I see that access to our fields. So I saw the need, right? And so we have to go outside of our district to go team up with other teams in Northside and McAllister Little League and everywhere around. Over there in Harlandale, McCullum area, you have the Little League over there, and so there's facilities and everywhere except here in our own place. And so excuse me, there are facilities here, but we don't have an organized Little League or Pony League at the scale and level of competition that we're finding abroad. Okay, so it stands to reason that when it's time to play baseball, because we haven't had the training or access to the field so that we can train our boys, that we get smashed, we get our teeth busted. And I'm very competitive, very passionate. I don't think you'll find a bigger fan in South San for our kids. So I want to celebrate the kids, but every time we end up lacking, falling short. And so I'm here today to ask that we build a bridge to give our local teams access to our high school facilities, okay? I did try, okay, let me fork out the money, let me go pay for this. So I team up with others, and let's make this happen. But then I said, well, let me see how much South San will charge. Well, lo and behold, I find out it's $500 to rent a field. And, I want us to come together and let's relook at that and see how you can make our own district, local boys and girls, give them access to those facilities so they can train, so they can get better, so that when we go compete, at least we got a chance. Right now we don't have much of a chance, quite frankly. I'm sad to say. So help me to help the kids. By building that bridge with me, if you will. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Next we have Andrew Guevara. Mr. Guevara.
Good evening, board members, superintendent.
My name is Eddie Guevara. For those of you who don't know, one of the greatest passions and one of the honors that I've been bestowed upon is being able to be the announcer for the South San Independent School District. I call the football games, baseball games, basketball games, probably about 60-75% of the athletic events that go on within the district, both in junior high and at the high school level. At the end of every event, one of the things that I proudly announce is that my name is Eddie Guevara, the voice of the Bobcats. I say that with so much pride and glory. You have no idea. Just like this gentleman, I think I'm the biggest Bobcat fan. But with that said, I am the voice of the Bobcats. But this evening, I want to be more than that. I'm going to be the voice of the parents that are here in this room. More importantly, I'm going to be the voice of the children in this district. But much bigger than that, I'm going to be the voice of concern. And I'm going to touch upon one of the items that's on the agenda is the discussion and possible action to amend the district policy GKD. Now, that's not a big concern for me now because I've had an opportunity the last couple of days to speak to, I believe, the administrators who are going to help me with this agenda. But my concern now is that I've been in a role, just like Mr. Lugo, a coach, a parent, since 2008 when my daughter was entering the softball program at South San High School. I was able to help and develop and coach the football program, the softball program. I did it again in 2013 when my other daughter entered the softball program. And most recently when my son, who was a freshman last year, I was able to run the fall ball winter program at South San High School. So in the middle of the summer, I call the coaches and I say, hey, it's time for us to get up there and start playing ball, swinging the bats, throwing the ball around. And they tell me that I can't. And they tell me that I can't, but if I want to, I've got to fork over $500. $500 to use my field. My field. Taxpayer, I'm a voter, that's my field. That's more my field, their field, our field, than anyone else here in this room. My field. So my biggest concern right now is I've got someone who's going to help me with that. I believe that someone's going to be able to help me with that. My major concern now is where is the breakdown in communication and processes that lead me to have to stand here in front of you to have this discussion. Because my biggest concern now is that, you know what, this is just athletics, I understand, it might be minute to some people, but what's going to happen the next time when there's an issue that's going to affect these kids and these parents financially, if we've got the same breakdown in communication and processes? What's going to happen when we've got the same breakdown in communication and processes when it's going to impact these kids' education? So that's my concern, and that's why I'm asking for your help, is someone needs to be held accountable for these breakdowns. And it needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed tonight. Once again, these are the children that wake up every morning and put Bobcats across their chest, and they're proud of it. They go out and represent themselves, their school, their family, their community, with great pride and joy. Don't forget that. So one thing in closing, two things I'm going to ask of you this evening, two things. And one is to look into the face of each one of these children and remember them. And second, when you've got to make a decision that's going to impact these children, remember the faces that you saw tonight. Don't forget who we are and where we come from. We live on the south side of San Antonio. We are the South San Antonio Bobcats, and we're damn proud of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guevara. We have next John Gomez. Mr. Gomez.
Good evening all, my name is John Gomez, and same reason where about the concern about the fields, rental fees and stuff. For the past 7 years, I've been a part of the off-season program here at South San, and built very nice, good relationships with the boys that I've had since 2012, 2013, all the way up. When I heard about this situation about the rental, the fee, was kind of like heartbreaking to me, because like, man, that's a special time for me to be along with my son who's here at South San, and along with these other boys that are trying to develop to get better, to compete at the next. We always emphasize they're going to go to college. That's their first thing. But our second goal is to make sure they can play in the second level. It was heartbreaking to me. It really was. Being part of this for the past 7 years and knowing that it's going to be a fee now, when that's kind of like their comfort zone, you know, away from home. Does that make sense? You know, to come out here, get some unity with each other before the actual season starts. Our coaches here at South San, I believe, do a very, very good job. I can speak more for the baseball coaches because that's where I'm a part of majority of my time. They're out there till 9, 10 o'clock, you know, fixing the field for our student athletes, spending, you know, hours out there trying to help develop during the regular season. So my concern is the same like Mr. Guevara, like you said. I don't understand why this came across after all these years. We've been having the opportunity to mold our young men, our student athletes, to become very competitive and go to college and succeed in life. So, again, I thank you for this time. Thank you guys for this time, and hope you consider us allowing you to use the field again. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Ms. Deborah Hernandez.
Hello. I too am here to speak about the same issue that Mr. Guevara was speaking of, number one, and the changes on the charges for rental facilities. I can't add more to what they've already said, but one of the things that I did hear is that they stopped the program in elementary level for our kids who do the Little Dribblers program. And this ties in with this rental fee and all that. I'm very, very concerned about that because everybody knows in this room that it's from our district, the financial situation of a lot of our parents. This is sometimes the only way for these kids to get any kind of baseball, basketball, soccer, any kind of team sport training. A lot of parents don't have the money to go put them in programs like Five Diamonds or CYO or anything like that. A lot of our basketball players are doing street ball, and that's all they know. So to take those programs away from them is really detrimental to those children. It's not fair. If we're setting up South San to be a class system to where only the parents whose kids, or kids who have parents that have enough money to afford to train them are going to be able to play sports for South San. And that's not fair to the other kids that don't have those types of parents. We need to open sports up to all kids because that's what keeps them with the grades high, that keeps them out of trouble, and that helps all the kids in all of our schools. So taking that program away, I hope that y'all can reconsider doing that. I think that was a bad decision, and somebody needs to look at that again, please. To have a kid with no training ever show up at 7th grade and try out for a basketball or football team or any of those teams with nothing, that's just not fair. So please consider my thoughts. Thank you.
That concludes our citizens to be heard, but as board president, I have the prerogative to respond to some of the comments that have made here, and I'd like to take that if I could, please. I'm concerned, as you are, and that we are having to charge our own students and parents and taxpayers that have paid for that facility. These children should not have to pay. This is their facility, that's why it was built. And for clarification purposes, the fee structure that was developed was not developed by the Board of Trustees. We had nothing to do with the fee structure. That is something that comes from the administration, and it comes from the administrators. It doesn't even have to come to the board for approval. They decide what fee structure, and then they implement it. So the board had no knowledge of it. The only reason that it's being discussed here tonight is because parents like you called these board members with concerns. Otherwise, we would have never known. And so because of that, I felt it was important that we discuss it. But I could not discuss it without placing an item on the agenda. And so the item that's on the agenda is under the action item, which is your GKD local. That's the only opportunity that we will have to discuss the policy and the fee structure. Had we not placed this item, we would not have been able to discuss it. And that is the reason, and that's why this is being discussed tonight. But please be clear, we had nothing to do with this fee structure that is being imposed on our parents and the children of this district. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our citizens to be heard. Next, we have superintendent's remarks. Dr. Saavedra.
Mr. President, members of the board, I want to provide the board and our community an update on the early college that opened up last year at the high school. As of this fall, we have approximately 272 students that are enrolled in the early college and taking those courses through our partnership with Palo Alto College. These classes include world civilization, speech, art appreciation, and community health. Our students have experienced tremendous success in these classes, with about 70% of our students earning A's. And of this group of students, about 33 of them have obtained the President's Honors for a 4.0 GPA, and 15 have earned honors for a 3.5 or higher GPA. We are all very proud of our students and look forward to increasing the numbers of students at the high school that will be receiving college credit as this program continues to expand. Another announcement, Southside ISD will actually have a feature column every couple of weeks in the Southside Reporter beginning at the end of October 27th. There's actually been very minimal coverage of the district in this publication, so we're looking forward to spreading the news of our district in this paper that is distributed in the community every Thursday. And then finally, the district staff, including central office folks, as well as teachers and principals and folks from our schools, over the next several weeks and through most of November, we will be involved in conducting block walks throughout the South San community to promote the positive happenings in our district. We plan to visit the homes of our students and community members to speak with families and also ask them to place South San, Viva South San signs in their yards to support the pride of our schools. That concludes my remarks at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Saavedra. Next, we'll move on. The next item we have are recognitions, and the first recognition is a recognition of Mr. Carlos Longoria and Mr. Trinidad Mata for their service to the children of South San ISD. Dr. Saavedra.
Fellow members of the board, as we know, two of our trustees decided not to run for re-election. This may be the last full meeting that they attend as trustees, and we felt it would be appropriate at this time to recognize both of our trustees. We have a plaque that we would like to present to them. And I want to start with Mr. Longoria and just read a few things here. Mr. Longoria has served on the board for 4 years as a trustee and as vice president as well. Most recently, he was very instrumental in the partnership with the Bexar County Sheriff's Department lease agreement in taking over the former Olivares Elementary building. So with that, we congratulate Mr. Longoria. We also would like to recognize Mr. Trinidad Mata. Mr. Mata has been on the board since 1998, a total of 18 years. During this period of time, Mr. Mata has served as, besides being a trustee, he has also served as president of the board. He has served as vice president of the board and as also secretary of the board during this 18 years of board service. During this time, Mr. Mata was also involved in the passage of several bond issues that help improve the conditions of our facilities, and including the construction of our new high school a few years ago. We look forward to, I know he looks forward to resting a little bit, enjoying time with family, and we just want to say thank you for his many years of service. Samantha. We have the board to come take a picture with the trustees down here.
There are
Correa mentioned a few of them. But another important issue that he didn't mention was the early college prep classes. That was a tremendous amount of work on behalf of the administration and the Board of Trustees. We're very happy for that accomplishment. And as I ride out into the sunset, I can't help but notice Mr. Ibarra's color of hair. 18 and a half years ago, mine was like that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Longoria, would you like to say a few words as well?
Yes, ma'am. I too also like to thank the community for, allowing me to serve them. Also want to thank my colleagues here on the dais for a true experience. Despite our many differences and heartaches and headaches, I have no doubt that the future board is going to lead this district in the right direction, along with the administration. So thank you very much.
Okay, next we have recognition number 2, and that's of the South San principals for exemplary service to our students and communities. Dr. Saavedra.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'm calling Melinda Costa to help me with this, but October statewide in the state of Texas is considered to be Principal Appreciation Month. And so with that, we're going to ask Melinda to help me recognize our principals.
Thank you, Dr. Saavedra. Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Castleberry. Ronald Reagan once said, the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things, but the one that gets people to do the greatest things. Day in and day out, our campus principals lead from the heart and inspire our teachers and students to take risks, explore a world of endless opportunities, and to do the greatest things. Tonight, in honor of National Principals Month, we thank you for your collective greatness and unwavering support of South San Antonio students and community. Our principals truly live our call to action every day. So with that, we always open every meeting in the district with standing up and all of us reciting our call to action. So I'd like to invite the community and principals to please rise. And if we could all say this together on my count. 1, 2, 3.
All students will enjoy successful education experiences which empower them to make decisions and enrich their lives in the future they create.
Thank you. Please be seated. So with that, I'll ask Dr. Saavedra and Ms. De Leon to come forward to recognize our principals. Our first principal that we'd like to recognize is from Armstrong Elementary School, Ms. Nicole Spears. Our second principal that we'd like to recognize is from Athens Elementary School, Ms. Sandra Sandoval. Next, we'd like to recognize from Benavides Elementary School, Mr. Johnny Diaz. From Carrillo Elementary School, Ms. Valerie Garcia. And from Five Palms Elementary School, Mr. Greg Martinez. From Hutchins Elementary School, Ms. Elizabeth Martinez. Kindred Elementary School, Ms. Marisa Mendez. From Madla Elementary School, Ms. Joanne Buchanan. From Palo Alto Elementary School, Ms. Judy Benavides. From Price Elementary School, Ms. Florinda Castillo. From Alternative Campus, Mr. Henry Iseguirre. From Dwight Middle School, Ms. Yvonne Hernandez. From Kazin Middle School, Mr. Joseph Carranza. From Shepherd Middle School, Ms. Griselda Balzadua. From Zamora Middle School, Ms. Rosana Mercado. And from South San Antonio High School, Dr. Lee Hernandez.
Can we get the board maybe to stand up behind them? We're gonna be able to get it here. Yeah, kind of, there you go.
All this way? Yeah. All right, let's take 2 of them. 1, 2, 3, more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is number 3, acknowledge and read Governor Abbott's proclamation designating October as Human Resource Awareness Month. Dr. Saavedra.
Proud members of the board, October is also Human Resource Awareness Month, and I would like to call on Mr. Valderrama as he does his presentation.
Ms. Prado, members of the board, Dr. Castleberry, Dr. Saavedra, Governor Greg Abbott has proclaimed October as Human Resources Awareness Month. On the screen is a proclamation from the Office of the Governor. And that's been sent out to all the school districts. We would like to recognize and thank our HR department, led by Ms. Monica Lopez, does a really good job, for their hard work and dedication to the students and employees of South San ISD. I would like to call Ms. Lopez to introduce her staff.
Ms. Prado, members of the board, Dr. Castleberry, Dr. Saavedra, it's with great honor and privilege to work with this department on an everyday basis. So I'm going to call their names and ask them to come forward so they can be recognized. So we're going to start with Elaine Arguero. Lisa Converse. Valerie Bernardo. Candelaria Mitchell, or better known as Candy Mitchell. Angela Moreno. Irma Payne. Melissa Perez. Dalia Resendez. Veronica Silva. Elvira Vasquez. And Melanie Zuniga. These ladies are human resources, payroll, and benefits.
Can we get the board stand? Get everybody in the picture.
There we go.
Thank you, ladies. That concludes the recognition. Next item on the agenda is consent agenda, and we have items 1 through 7. Are there any items from 1 through 7 that need to be pulled for discussion? If there are none, do I hear a motion for approval?
Move to approve items 1 through 7 in the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Mr. Mata, seconded by Mr. Longoria. All in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have discussion and possible action. The first item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to amend district policy GKB local. This is the policy that I was referencing to earlier that has to do with the facilities and the rental of the facilities. I had asked Dr. Savetta to place this on the agenda because of the concerns from the parents and what we just heard today as well. Dr. Savetta did inform or did provide us a backup of the structure fee that the administration had come up with. I was not aware of it unless other board members were, but that was the first time I had seen that. I don't know, Dr. Savetta, I have questions, and I'm sure the other trustees do as well. On the structure itself, the fee, and how was that generated, and who made that decision, and how did we come up with those amounts?
Yes, ma'am. Fellow members of the board, a couple of years ago, as we started looking at the efficiency of the district, and we started looking at situations where there was little structure, the leasing of facilities was one of the areas where there was little structure. And the development of this fee structure was the result of that, as well as an application process for community members that want to use facilities. If I can call your attention to the fee schedule, many of the fees have hourly rates also, and some do not. Some of the ones that do not are actually some of the athletic fields as well as the gymnasiums. Until this year, about 4 months ago, the athletic facilities were being leased out through the athletic department. And I don't remember the exact month, but I believe it was sometime this summer. It could have been in the spring. All of this facility rental came under one office, which would be the office of the executive director for business operations. The situation that was addressed earlier by our community members, it's my understanding that Mr. Besada has had a discussion with them recently, within the last few days. Honestly, we were not aware of the concerns. At least I wasn't. I don't believe that the administration was. It's my understanding that they applied through the process that we have. Mr. Besada tells me we're not being able to locate that application. Nevertheless, I spoke earlier with various administrators, including the athletic director, and it is my understanding that the practice of parents or non-school personnel coaching athletes is a common practice among UIL and permitted by UIL. I was also informed that the utilization of facilities by these teams and these groups is also a common practice that's permitted in many of the surrounding school districts. We did reach out to a few of the parents that had expressed concern just within the last 2 days. I'm confident we can resolve the differences and the issues, but quite frankly, it had not gotten to our level until just recently. And I would agree that some of this fee schedule needs to be modified. But I would also caution the board in reference to making changes to the policy itself, in that there's always a demand for the use of facilities. What drew our attention this summer to the fact that I believe the baseball parents and the baseball students were utilizing the facility, had been utilizing the facility without any charge, was the fact that another group that had been charged by the district was raising that question. We received, that's the only reason that this was brought to our attention, somebody else that had paid the fees was now challenging the fact that other groups were not being charged. And so that's one of the reasons I guess I cautioned the board as to what changes we make to the policy, because there is a big demand for the facilities. It's also my understanding that some school districts in the area have increased their fees so high to the point that some of them are coming to our facilities and utilizing, wanting to rent our facilities because they're more reasonable rates. So it needs to be looked at, it needs to be addressed, but I also think we need to be cautious as to how we make the changes. Thank you.
Questions, board members? Mrs. Estrada?
Dr. Saavedra, can you tell me which school districts you're talking about that are coming and using our facilities?
It's my understanding that we've had people from Harlandale that have come to rent our facilities because Harlandale charges too much for their facilities, and so frankly, some of the Harlandale teams are actually utilizing some of our facilities.
So it's just Hardendale?
Harlandale.
It's just Hardendale? Okay, and another question I have is, when you said that they were questioning the use of the field, the people who were being charged, were they students from Southside or were these outside entities?
Honestly, I don't have the email. Do you have the email that we talked about earlier today? That email? I don't know the answer to your question, but I do have the communication with us that raised that question.
Okay, if you can get that before I ask
Certainly will.
my next question.
If I may, Mrs. Estrada, why she's
Sure.
Dr. Estrada, you referenced that currently the facility was under the direction of the director of,
Athletics?
no, you said it was.
Oh, right, the executive director for business operations.
Right, exactly. And I think that was in the past, was it not Jenny Everdondo?
In the past, yes.
And then once Jenny left, that duty was taken over by Mr. Becerra.
Correct.
Prior to that, in fact, prior to this fee structure, because, and I need to know when was this generated? How long have we had
The
it?
fee structure, I believe about 2 years.
There's no date.
I think it's about 2 years, man. I don't have an exact date for you, but it's been a couple years that we've been charging these fees.
There's
The policy states 10/12/2015.
I'm
The
sorry?
policy itself at the bottom,
10/12/15.
it says 10/12/2015.
Okay,
So for a year.
well, that would be the policy, but the policy might have been amended at that time. The fees themselves would be administrative documents that I think we've been charging these fees for about close to 2 years, year and a half to 2 years.
I think, might remind the board, I'm thinking if it's 2 years, when we have the problem of money being kept from a rental, I don't know if we can say any of this, because all of this was an executive session.
Right.
Well, there are numerous concerns approximately 2 years ago.
Well, that's when this all started.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. As far as some groups being able to use facilities without charge, or not covering enough of the cost of having custodians come in and clean up.
That was a private.
The requirement of security, for example, as well on big events. So, it's been something
There was
that.
money that was kept, and
Right.
we said we
It was a private
talked about an
meeting.
executive session, but
Yeah.
that's when all this started.
Exactly, and I think that's when actually the policy was updated because of that issue. But that does not negate the issues that we are charging our own students and their parents to use their own facility that they built. They should not be charged. I'm sorry, that's how I feel.
And I don't disagree with you, Ms. Brunel. The issue this summer, in reference to charging the group this summer, but what I understand, the students that participated in that summer program were being charged for participation. I believe I was told today they were charged $100 per student. I think it's lack of communication on us not understanding exactly the format that they use to organize these club sports. But again, when students are being charged to participate, matter of fact, that's exactly I think what the letter said. If you have it there,
Yes, it
let
is.
me have it. And I'll read to you what brought this to our
Coach Laura
attention.
is here too, he can speak to it.
And this just says to who it may concern. This in regards to the South Sound baseball field. Now, this came to us this summer.
May I stop you for just a moment, Dr. Sveda? I don't mean to interrupt. Is this an anonymous email that you got?
I don't think so. Let me see. No, ma'am, it's signed.
Signed, okay.
It is signed. I'm not going to read the name because I don't put the person in that situation, but we received it June 23rd of this year. And it says, my organization tried to rent this field a while back, but we were told that no one was allowed to rent the baseball field per se, which is the game field. It says, I also had a co-worker who had contacted the executive director about using the gym and was told they would have to fill out paperwork and pay a fee. And it goes on, it's very long, I don't know if you want me to read all of this, but it goes on to say, in this league, the summer league they're talking about, that is not run by South San, and the coaches have no affiliation with this league, then why is it that each student player had to pay a fee of $100 to join? And this fee was paid to one of the coaches here at South San, and I know this because my neighbor paid the fee and so forth. I guess what I'm saying, there's a lot of dispute as to who gets to use the field and who doesn't get to use the field. And so that's the only reason when I say we got to approach this with caution. I think we should, because we get a lot of these concerns on a regular basis.
I'm going to reserve the rest of my comments to Mrs. Estrada, now that you've read that.
Dr. Savannah, my concern with this is charging our students. Number one, these are our students. A lot of our students have hardships, their parents have hardships. And then we have our these are volunteer coaches that are not getting paid. You have them volunteering their time. They're buying their snacks, they're buying their drinks, they're taking care of them when they get injured. And to come out here and tell them that we have to charge, or they're charging $500 to use the field for our children is not okay with me. I'd like to know, when administration uses facilities for training or whatever, are we paying a $500 fee to use them?
We don't use the fields.
Okay, but I'm saying any, structure, I mean, if we use down there, we don't have to pay to use it, so why should our children, this is our children's district. So I have, we're supposed to be for the kids, and to sit here and put a dollar sign on something that some just can't attain is not okay with me. These are our children, we're supposed to be enriching them, encouraging them, and when you have volunteer coaches here today saying that it's hard to get that amount, that's a big issue for me, especially with it being our students. Outside entities is understandable, other people coming from other districts to use our facilities, that's something different. But this district belongs to the kids, not to me, not to you, not to anybody else sitting in this room with the children. So I have a big issue with a $500 or any fee whatsoever for our children to use these facilities, especially when the people who are coaching them are volunteers. That's it.
Yes, Ms. Madla?
Dr. Savannah, could you do like a formula? Because if it's our students using the facilities.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. Yeah, the answer is yes. Again, earlier this week, as we learned who some of the parents were that spoke tonight, I know Mr. Becerra reached out to some of these folks. I think the present problem can be resolved. I don't think we have a major issue with this situation. Again, I think it was either lack of communication or incomplete communication that we ended up in the situation we ended up in. But I think this situation can be resolved without any major problems.
Well, I think we can sit up here all night long and give our opinion, but I think what we need is we need a solution, like you just said, and I think we need to work really fast on it, because I've got phone calls and texts, and parents are really irate, there again, you know. if
We'll be
mom
happy to
wants
meet with them
use it,
as early as tomorrow
Mom wants
morning.
to use it, double it, so that we make up. Do not charge our students.
Sure.
I just want to say something else, and I'll give it to Mrs. Estrada. Dr. Sevilla, when we came up with this fee structure, this was not a part of the policy. This is
No,
just
ma'am.
something the administration came up with, but no dates, we don't know when this
Correct.
came up with. Ms. Do we know when this was publicized?
I don't have the exact date, Ms. Problem. I think it was about 1.5 to 2 years ago, but I don't have the exact date.
Do we know who came up with the fee structure?
Well, it was drafted by the executive director, but it was approved by the cabinet, through the superintendent's cabinet.
Okay.
Because this is the type of thing that comes through the cabinet.
Okay, I think what's missing, and I'm going to have to echo on what Ms. Mata said, is it's good to have a fee structure, but we need to have more guidelines on this is, if the team that wants to practice in our field is 80% of our students, they should not be charged a fee. If it's any outsider from another district that wants to come and practice, then they have to pay a fee. But even for an outsider to come and pay $500, that is a big amount of money. And I noticed that there's hourly practice rates for just about every other facility except baseball or softball, and they range from $20 to $25, $35. So well, how did they come up with those amounts for the other facilities, and what is that money being used for?
I think the athletic facilities, and Robert, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the athletic facility, those amounts were amounts that have been charged for a long time through athletics? Or was that generated within the last 2 years?
That was to do with just our athletic rentals.
So that's what athletics have been charging for these facilities?
For UIL.
For UIL for the last several years, I think. And so those charges that don't have hourly, that actually has been in place for even beyond 2 years. It's the ones that have the hourly, like the elementary schools, the middle school auditoriums, and so forth, those were the ones that were generated within the last 1.5 years or so.
So there's no hourly practice rate for high school facilities, only elementary and middle school?
At this point, yes, but I can tell you that Mr. Becerra has some very good ideas, because we've talked about this already, in modifying the schedule in a way very similar to what y'all are describing in reference to, I believe, there's 3 different categories that we're looking at, and we'll be happy to share that with you when that's completed.
I think Mrs. Estrada, did you have something else?
Yes, Dr. Sabata, you said that this was approved by the superintendent's cabinet. So why is there no documentation as to when it was put in place?
Well, I guess we could look up the minutes for the last 2 years and we'll find the date for you, but right now I don't have that date in front of me.
Well, it's just a concern because it's been on the agenda since Friday and we don't have that information. We should have that information knowing we're going to ask those questions.
I do not have it, ma'am.
First, Mr. Yostigin, and then Mr. Mata.
Dr. Savannah, when reviewing the policy, my concern was for-profit use. It said the district shall not permit individuals or for-profit organizations to use its facilities for financial gain. The district reserves the right to deny rentals. And so my question is, there is a karate school in our district, and they hold yearly competitions or tournaments. And so they used our facility in the past, I want to say maybe about 5 years ago. And I was just concerned in reading this, would they be allowed to use the facility still or not? They are a for-profit organization.
Okay, if they are a completely for-profit and they're charging these young folks, and if all the students participating, if they are all South San students,
Their school is South San, but the tournament is statewide, so we get from other cities.
Most likely not, to answer your question. Most likely not. Now, one of the things to be concerned about also is simply the wear and tear of facilities. But I totally agree that our community should be allowed to use our facilities, absolutely. And this district ought to be able to cover its expenses, custodial costs, security, whatever it may be, But there comes a time also where we need to be careful with simply not getting into the business of simply leasing facilities for just anyone primarily because of the concern of wear and tear on the facilities. You know. As a matter of fact, the play fields, whether it be baseball field, the football stadium, we got to be very careful as to how many groups do we agree to lease these facilities to, even though they may all be our students. Because again, these are game fields that require high maintenance. The wearing out of some very expensive turf, for example. So I know that Mr. Zamora and I had some discussions this afternoon, concerns about that, because it has to be controlled. It can't just be a wide open, anyone can use these fields, because we'll end up with some pretty high maintenance repairs over a period of time.
Mr. Mata.
There are many factors that we need to consider. Number one that I would suggest is let the superintendent and the athletic director or the superintendent staff to handle this. Dr. Saavedra already mentioned that he could possibly come up with some type of a organized structure to where we could get some people happy. No matter what you do in this situation, you're not going to have everybody happy. But the concern is our students, and we really need to consider the cost of the wear and tear of the fields. Who's going to cut the grass? Who's going to take care of the turf? Your officials, what are they going to recommend? Striping, whatever. You need to consider those fees also. Now, possibly the teams will take care of that, that's fine. But I believe at this time, just let the superintendent, athletic director, and his staff come up with a solution for this. And I do caution that you're not going to have everybody happy, but hopefully we can get most of the people happy. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mata. Ms. Estrada.
I believe when we had citizens to be heard, we heard several of the coach volunteers say that they prep the fields, they get the fields ready, they clean them up, they do whatever it is that's needed for those fields. So, you know, I think that's it's a plus. You know, they're out there doing it. We're not paying anybody to do it, they're doing it. So I hope we consider that.
Anybody else? Dr. Saavedra, I guess what I'm hearing is it seems like your staff and you have already discussed this and have something that you're going to propose, a change of structure maybe. Maybe we should table this for our next meeting so you can come back with a revised fee structure and some further guidelines.
What I would like to do is meet with the parents, the gentlemen that concerning baseball, because I think they need to get that program going, and I'm happy to meet as early as tomorrow. I think we can resolve that probably with one meeting. Well, I'll be happy to bring a revised schedule and share that with the board, like I said, for the next meeting. But in the meantime, I would like to, I guess, have permission to work with these parents so we can resolve this in the more immediate problem.
Right. I think I agree. The parents that have come here is because they have a need of the facility now. But more importantly, I want to echo on what Ms. Hernandez said. We need feeder programs. We don't have them. We used to have them at the elementary, and I don't know why that has stopped. Maybe somebody can answer that. But what's happened now is by not having feeder programs at the elementary, you no longer have cheerleaders, and you don't have other programs. And it stops parent involvement. And that is the key to the kids' success, is the parent involvement. So I'd like to see that regenerated, that feeder program.
Actually, it's been resolved within the last week.
Okay, so
Same thing. It was brought to our attention within the last week that somehow we had stopped. Actually, it was the principals, if I recall that correctly. Last Thursday, the principals told me, elementary principals told me, we stopped our elementary program.
Right.
And so we got on it. It's been resolved. It's getting ready to start again.
And Mrs. Estrada.
Did we get are we going to get the little dribblers back? Are we going to get those programs going?
Sure.
And may I ask why they were stopped?
Yes.
Because I had no clue until I went and visited the elementary. I had nobody doing anything.
I think we have superintendents coming in and out.
Okay.
Well, they played last year and the year before.
Well, we're trying to, Ms. Bottom, Superintendent, staff, the board, we're trying to get, it was a cash flow, okay, so it was soccer, we're gonna be going next week. And they charge $10 each individual. $5 goes for a t-shirt, and $5 goes into that program that's participating at that time of sport, which is next week will be in soccer. We were trying to get that correct, along with additional responsibilities of coaches that are in season and out of season, with the loss of many coaches that we had to leave the district, and then with our UNL schedule, there was a concern with being able to take care of our academics first as a priority at the high school. And we're getting back late at night, close to 1 in the morning. We weren't sure we were going to be able to hold that the next day. So that was a concern of our coaching staff, but we're going to put it into place.
Mr. Zamora, in those programs, and I know for a fact because I coached for about 4 years in those programs, I did baseball, soccer, football, those are volunteer coaches. So how are we?
Still need a supervisor out there.
I mean, you had two, if I'm not mistaken, there was two out there.
Right, you still need that.
And they were students from the high school.
Right, that was another part of it. We had to get security because our students were kind of being on a bad call, close play at home, close play out on the field. We were looking towards getting officials instead of having our student athletes call the games. So that was another investment we were looking to.
So is this something that we're going to start back this year? Well, the kids are missing out on a lot this year.
Oh, we understand that. We understand that, but we're also taking on the financial side of that because we want a security. We want to get an official out there so it could be certified.
Because I remember we did have South San officers out there. In fact, we had two, if I'm not mistaken. Then we had our two refs our two high school students, and then we had two teachers out there. So we had the staff out there. So what
We're getting
happened?
away from the students having to call games. And then the security was added.
I think, Mr. Mata, you have a question?
I just wanted to mention to you, there was a young man out there that wanted to get recognized. You held your hand up.
Oh, it was me. I just had it was okay. I wanted to clarify on that email that was read about that summer issue that happened there. I could tell you the fact that fee was not, a coach did not collect it from South End. I was actually the one that collected. It was actually another district. I'm sorry. It was a tournament. It was a league play for 1 month, right? And it was the cost for each student athlete that played was to pay for the baseballs, the umpires, and the insurance for every single boy, every single student athlete during that time. So no money was taken from any of the high school coaches. I collected everything from the parents. The parents are here, they could verify that for me. And I did pay the tournament, the league director, and we played our games at South Sands strictly because it was the summertime. A lot of our boys cannot drive, and that director allowed to schedule all the games, which was once a week, to have them at South Sand to help accommodate our situation as far as our boys not being able to drive, or parents trying to get off of work early to try to get them on the other side of town. So as far as that email, I'm not sure who wrote that or what happened, but I can tell you the fact, I did collect that money along with another team mom, and we did pay it to the tournament director. So nothing, I just want to let everyone know, no coach accepted any kind of cash. We're not going to put any administration, any coach in any kind of jeopardy. We understand the rules and stuff, how to do this stuff. I just want to verify that nothing was, everything we paid went straight to the tournament for the league, for the 1 month. And again, he allowed us to play all our games at South Sand strictly because we had a lot of freshmen and sophomores that cannot drive themselves like other schools could come over here and drive to South Sand. So I just wanted to make that point across, and I appreciate the time for that.
Thank you.
I think it's very important that we move quickly on this. These children being in sports, it's very important. It not only enriches their mind, it teaches them responsibility, it teaches them respect, and it teaches them to work as a team. And when you start at the elementary level, it makes a big difference when they're in the secondary level because that's already built into them. So to concentrate up at the high school and everything else is falling apart down here, we need to run at these steps and not just tiptoe, because it's very important that we keep our kids first and foremost. That's it.
Any other questions? questions. Dr. Savetta, when it comes back to the board, would you make sure that whatever changes are made, that it coincides with the policy, GKD, that if there's any changes to the policy need to be made, that be brought as well? Okay. Dr. Savetta, Ms. Estrada's question is, are they still going to charge the 500?
No.
No, okay. Okay. That's on the record.
So that fee has been waived. That fee has been waived. Because we're still going to resubmit the paperwork that's supposedly that no one ever received.
What I would like to do is meet with you all as early as tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll be happy to discuss the details, but, you know, like I said, there's most likely will not be any fee. For sure, there won't be a $500 fee.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, design.
So we're going to table item number 1 then for the next meeting.
You want to table it?
Yes, because it's got to come back with your changes in case they coincide with the policy.
Well, if you're going to modify the policy next time, it would make sense to table it, but if all we're changing are the fees, which is not part of the policy, it would not require your action.
Okay, so there's nothing then, that any changes that you're going to make that are going to require an amendment to the policy?
Right now, I don't think so.
Okay.
And for some reason, if we decide that the policy needs to be modified, of course, we'll bring it back to the board.
Okay, done.
Yes,
And when you do make those changes, would you send that out to the
I will.
board immediately so we'll have
I
access to
will.
that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, parents, for coming.
Thank you.
I thought that was for your office to notify the ones who were going to change.
So
So I thought the only reason that we're putting it on again is so that we know the changes. So you're just going to send that to us?
Yeah, the fee structure is not part of the policy, but I'd be happy to send whatever revisions we come up with on the fee structure.
All right, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to approve the purchase of 2 work trucks from Caldwell Country Chevrolet for the Facilities Department. Dr. Savetta.
Fellow members of the board, this is requested board approval to purchase 2 vehicles, 2 trucks, work trucks for our maintenance department. It's a total amount of $49,731.
Are there any questions, board members?
I have a question.
Yes, Ms.
Why
Bowman.
are we finding it out in Kendall County?
What we buy from them, it's part of a cooperative, I believe that's correct. So what we do is we buy from a cooperative that the state has approved. Does not require us to go out formally for bids ourselves, in essence, the state has already done that, and that's one of the approved buyers. I mean, not buyers, approved sellers, vendors, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Ostigi?
Dr. Saavedra, when we purchased these 2 vehicles, what, in our fleet, how many more will we need to purchase in a timely fashion to update our vehicles?
Well, right now I'm guessing, but I'm going to tell you it's not, you know, I don't have the exact information, but I know this. There's still some old vehicles that need to be replaced. And in addition to the replacement need, we also need additional vehicles so that the maintenance department can become more efficient. We have fewer vehicles than we have people that work, men that work. You know, we can become more efficient with more vehicles. Some of the jobs is a one-man job, but ordinarily it wasn't 2 because, you know, we don't have enough vehicles. But so I mean, I think we still have probably 3 to 4 more years of buying vehicles, 2 or 3 a year, before we can actually catch up.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions, board members?
Move to approve as presented.
Ms. Bauer?
Let's get the motion first. Mr. Mata has a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Longoria. Discussion. Mr. Longoria.
Dr. Speller, specifically, what departments are these vehicles going to?
Maintenance.
Well, what departments within maintenance?
Facilities. It's going to go to our trades.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, Caldwell is just right outside College Station. Why did we go 150 miles outside the city to purchase these vehicles?
I don't know that this is Caldwell County. Because it actually says Caldwell Country Chevrolet.
Actually, I looked it up in the.
Is it still Caldwell?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have no idea as to why.
Okay.
I know last year we bought from Gunn, which is local. I don't know why we bought from Caldwell.
Mrs. Estrada?
Do we have somebody here that does know why we bought from Caldwell?
So we got 3 quotes from pre-approved vendors, and they happen to be the lowest price,
So it was the lowest one.
the better specifications as well.
Are they charging us for shipping them here?
No, we're not. No.
They're not.
Ma'am, and they also were going to be providing us the vehicles with us.
And we're gonna have, may I finish? We're gonna have the tools to put in these trucks, right? Because I know that we're buying cell phones for the employees, but they don't have uniforms and tools, and they're missing a lot of stuff. So we're gonna make sure everything's taken care of before we're purchasing vehicles, aren't we?
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Mata, seconded by Mr. Longoria. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Mata? Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to approve a contract with TechServe for the implementation of the bus guard program. Dr. Saavedra.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is a proposal by TechServe, which is Dallas County Schools. It's a big transportation operation, public entity out of Dallas County. They basically will install approximately $10,000 worth of electronic equipment on each of our school buses, exterior cameras as well as interior cameras, as well as a GPS system. And recently, the city of San Antonio has passed a city ordinance that would allow this program to operate within our city limits. It's my understanding that this public entity put a proposal before this board about 5 years ago. I think it was 2011 or so, 2012 or so. But at the time, the city did not have the ordinance that they recently passed. So they've come back and put a very similar proposal in front of us. We'll call him Mr. Becerra. I think he can give you more of the details than I can. But it is a proposed 5-year agreement.
Good evening, Ms. Prado, fellow board members, Dr. Castleberry, Dr. Saavedra. Any questions? I do have a representative from TechServe, Mr. Swartwood, is here this evening.
Good evening, board. 5 years ago, I stood before the board and made a presentation about the bus guard system. They approved, this board was the first board in Central Texas to approve our program. I told you that I would be back when the city passed the appropriate ordinance. I just didn't know it would take 5 years to do that. So I'm back. Just wanted to go over a couple of things. I think the biggest takeaway of this program is it doesn't only address the violators on the outside of the bus. It's a complete student safety program. We've got 4 interior cameras that are mounted inside the bus. We've got a forward-facing camera. Each bus will have real-time GPS, so you can track the buses as they travel down the road. We've got 4 terabytes of storage. The cameras on the inside are IP cameras. It's my understanding that the district doesn't have cameras on some of the buses, so I think this would be a huge upgrade in technology. We've got immediate system function check, so you don't have to go out to the bus and see that there's no video. We can simply determine whether that system is functioning, and our service techs can respond immediately. We have reporting as it relates to the violations. The board and administration would get monthly reports showing where these violations are occurring. We have our own secure VPN, so none of this information is traveling over public networks or private. And most importantly, I think that we have 5 layers of review as it relates to the stop on violators, including a San Antonio police officer ultimately deciding whether this is a violation or not a violation. The good news, I think, is when implemented, it lowers the propensity of these violations by up to 25% a year, 16% in the second year on average. So we can see a dramatic decrease in these type of violations. In Dallas, I can tell you can take the same bus, same driver, same route 4 years ago, and people were passing these buses today. It's like parking in a red city. They'll stop and obey the law. So we install and maintain all the equipment. We have 90 people here in the state of Texas that provide support for this program. We provide training to the school district and transportation as to how to utilize all the features and benefits of our system. We're working with Councilmember Ward right now on an extensive PSA campaign. Looks like that the goal is to start this program in December of this year. Currently, we've completely loaded the school districts, Northeast ISD, Southwest Judson, and Southside. So we would like to include South San Antonio in that group when we initially roll this out, especially since this board was the first board to take action in Central Texas when nobody else would. And I applaud this board and the members for that 5 years ago, but we appreciate that. So, and finally, the program is headcount neutral. You do not have to hire anybody to administer this program. We have a central location here in San Antonio. We will be employing and in the process of employing reviewers and processors, and then off-duty police officers to ultimately approve these citations. So, lastly, this program is not about revenue, but there is a revenue component. The city of San Antonio does not want revenue from this program, so 40% of the revenue will go to the district. They have asked the district to take some of that revenue and put it back into student initiatives. And as I sat here tonight and listened to some of the concerns and some of the programs maybe that are underfunded, I think this is a perfect avenue to reinvest some of this revenue and safety initiatives as well. So anyway, I appreciate your time. It's good to be back, and I'm going to take this along. Thank you very much.
Board members are making questions. Ms. Ostergian.
If the board approves this, what is the timeline to fitting the buses, and when will the rollout happen?
So I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's 50 buses approximately. We currently have an installation team right here. They're wrapping up Northeast ISD. They did, I think it's 200 buses in about 2 weeks. So it would be really an easy fit to get them to transition right over here, and they can finish that process in probably about a week. We have a pre-installation meeting to review what they do to the buses, and that'll be with transportation. And then it would be implemented right now, December 15th.
Ms. Guerra?
Okay, it says that you're going to do the installation of about 10,000 worth of electronic for free. How much will it cost? What other costs are in there for the district, like a year?
There's no cost to the district other than there's a tablet. So when you retrieve evidence off of the school bus, you put an easy check into our system and it's secured by lock. That creates a Wi-Fi signal, and with a tablet you direct what video you want, and it downloads it right to the SD card. So the only thing that we ask the district to provide is those tablets, because the districts have different preferences. We have an app that you can install on both Android and Apple devices. So we do have a recommended tablet, and really the district would only need probably one or two of them, and they're about $350.
Mrs. Estrada?
Can you explain to me the difference as to what we have already besides the cameras and the officer? What's the difference in what we're doing now opposed to what you're offering today?
As far as the technology?
Yes.
On the bus?
I got the GPS and the cameras. What else do we?
I tell you, one of the things that is often utilized is live view. So if something is happening on the bus now, the district will have access to remote in and be able to view live and respond, as well as the police department, and view live and respond accordingly to that situation. I think live view is huge. Again, these IP cameras, and I know the director of transportation came from Judson when we were installing the units. He had seen this, and he told me the quality of these cameras are incredible.
Is this something that we're going to have to get permission from the parents for, seeing that they're going to be recording? Or is that taken care of at the beginning of the year when we do that?
You don't need permission.
For transportation?
I do have concern. My concern is only because the city, now that they passed that ordinance, is going to be citing vehicles that are passing the buses that haven't stopped out. So they have their own program in effect, but they will be sending a citation to a homeowner because they'll have their address. So what are we going to do to prevent duplicity? Because your citation, their citation will probably go in the first day or two. And if your camera's catching the same person violating the same issue, and then your company sends out a citation, how do you prevent that duplication?
Yeah, so, and that's a good question, that happens. So we have a system that if a violator is caught by a San Antonio Police Department, there is, there's no double jeopardy. Their citation can be criminal, and that would trump our civil citation. So that the citizens wouldn't be fined twice. That answers your question.
And then my next question is, the citations coming from your company, are they going to go out to the taxpayers with the company's logo that says TechServe? Because if it is, how are they going to know that the violation is because of passing a school bus in the South San District? I mean, how are they going to, they're going to say, who sent me this violation? I don't even know this company.
Yeah, so it's an ordinance from the city of San Antonio. So on and we have a template of the violation, but it cites the ordinance number with the San Antonio logo, and then all those numbers are directed at us. It does not say what school district, and again, many school districts are participating, so it will not mention the school district. It's a San Antonio ordinance. The violation will be sent out.
So they won't know what district that they violated this when they were traveling.
They'll only know we geofence the city limits. So all they know is that it happened within the city limits.
Board members, any other questions?
Mr. Rogers?
Yes, Mr. Longoria.
Yes, sir. So you're stating that the officers that review the violations of San Antonio Police?
Yes, sir.
My understanding, Northeast also ventures off in Bexar County area, so do you also have other agencies participating in this?
So in order for us to cite violators in the county, in Bexar County, it has to be legislation by the state. We've been working several sessions on a state law, but heretofore there is no state law. But if that happens, if and when, then we can geofence the Bexar County.
Because we actually do have a stretch that belongs to Bexar County up from the Quintana Road all the way down Military Drive through Latin. That's all Bexar County. We work with Bexar County, so that's why I'm asking also on that.
Okay. Yes,
Just a couple of things that you need to know. Of course they'll know what school bus it is. I mean, it may not be on the thing, but when you put the address on it and the routes are known, of course the people will know whose bus it is. Besides that, the bus and the camera film are discoverable in the process. So that's not accurate. Second, the thing that you need to know is, somebody asked about cost. Because there's no cost, this is a little different from a standard contract. There, under the Texas Government Code, when you adopt a contract, there's something called a non-appropriation clause that goes into an agreement. That's put in so that you cut off at the end of a budget cycle. Because of the way this is funded, that doesn't apply to this case. These guys are putting up a fair amount of money in terms of that, and they are providing essentially the source to pay them back. So when they provide the source to pay them back, you don't have to have a non-appropriation clause in the agreement. So when you sign this, you're on for 5 years, okay? Not on for one renewable. It's not necessarily a reason not to approve it, but it's something that you need to know when you make the decision. So that the cost of the district is access to its vehicles for a period of time. That's no actual out-of-pocket cost, but you are providing access to these guys for a 5-year period of time.
Yes, Mrs. Strauss.
So does that mean that, Mr. O'Hanlon, does that mean that the cost can change what happened to us previously?
What happens to what?
Can the cost change within that 5-year limit? I mean, can we end up having to pay something more than what they're asking?
This entity has agreed to provide servicing and a set of services that go around this at no cost to the district for a period of time. So no, the cost won't go up in terms of that outcome. So if it crashes and burns and they change the statute, there's some opt-out provisions, or the legislature comes back and does it. But there will be no out-of-pocket cost in terms of that. I'm comfortable with that. Comfortable with their exempt from bidding laws. I'm comfortable with it. Our acquisition of services are fine with respect to that. But if you approve this, you're entering into this agreement for 5 years. That's all, and you just need to know that before you take that decision.
May I ask why you're offering this for free?
So our company, again, maintains and services the equipment. We provide the equipment, and we receive 60% of the revenue from the citations. 40% goes to the school district in this case.
I do have one last question. At the end of the first year, are you going to provide us with data on what has transpired the first year? How many citations? What are the locations? We will get some sort of a data from you, a report from you every year, so we'll know how it's progressing and not progressing.
Yes, ma'am. We provide those reports. Actually, we provide them every month at request of our students.
Is that something you provide to the administration?
Yes, ma'am.
And then Dr. Sabella, you will provide it to the board. So we, although there is a termination for cause clause, is that right? Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if there are none, do I hear a motion?
I make a motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion by Ms. Ostadin. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Longoria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible action to approve the carry forward and reappropriate 2015-2016 encumbrances and fund commitments into fiscal year 2016-2017. Dr. Sabella.
Mr. President, members of the board, this carry forward is actually a budget amendment in the amount of $666,497.70. It is in order to complete projects that were initiated in the previous fiscal year, and they will be paid out in total this fiscal year. So the money's in the budget, it just needs to go from one fiscal year to the next.
Any questions, board members? If there are none, do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
I have a motion by Ms. Ostadin. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Longoria. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 5, discussion and possible action to approve the teacher mentor stipend to be paid out twice a year, December and May. Dr. Sabella.
Well, members of the board, as the board might remember, during the month of August, when the board approves the salary structures, they also approve stipends. And in essence, we put a manual in front of you that you approve. In that manual, it specifies that most of the stipends paid to our teachers are being paid out in 24 installments, or 24 paychecks for the year. There's actually a few within that manual that have an asterisk, and those are identified at that time as stipends that will be paid out twice a year, and in one case, even once a year. This particular mentor stipend, which is a stipend of $300 total for the year, for 95 teachers that serve as mentor teachers, did not have the asterisk and was not identified as being paid out twice a year. HR, our Department of Human Resources, conducted a survey of these 95 teachers. 57 responded out of the 95, and of the 57 that responded, 50 preferred that they get paid twice a year, which would be about $150 in December and $150 in May. 7 preferred that their stipend be spread out over the 24 payments. So based on that survey, we're asking the board permission to allow us to pay this particular stipend on 2 payments. They will receive half of it in December, and they will receive the second half in May.
Any questions, board members? No?
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Yes, Mrs. Strana.
You said how many did this affect?
95 total.
95? And you said out of the 95, 50% wanted a change?
57 responded of the 95. The other, 38 or so did not respond. But of the ones that responded, 50 said they want 2 payments. 7 said they would prefer 24 payments.
And may I ask, was this an anonymous survey?
Was it anonymous?
Yes.
I don't know.
Have it right here.
We have it right there. No, it was not anonymous. No. They identified themselves. They responded back to HR.
I'm sorry, are you done?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not stuck where we were back in the beginning of the year where we dragged the teachers in like 5 times and, punched them in the eye. So I just want to make sure we're doing what these teachers need or want.
Dr. Bella, I just have one question. These are 95 teachers that were not identified when the pay scale was adopted back in July or August. And so they had not been receiving them the stipend, or they were receiving them?
No, the stipends were all approved at one time.
Right.
All right. And I would imagine that some of these teachers might have been identified at that point. I'm not sure that all of them were actually identified at that point. You know, but they basically serve as mentor teachers for new teachers. The stipend is relatively small, it's, $300. And
I guess for clarification, is that meaning that they had not been asked to serve as mentors? That's why they have not been identified?
no, I believe, Monica, can you help me with this?
That's correct. They get identified, when we reach out to them? In August is when we reach out to them to see who wants to serve as mentors for the teachers.
So 95 had not been identified?
That is correct.
So they had not been asked or had not responded whether they wanted to or not?
That is correct.
That's why they were not getting the stipend at the time?
That is correct.
Okay.
But we've identified them and we know who they are now.
Okay, so it's not something that happened in the pay scale that we just didn't pay them?
No.
Okay, we don't want to go through that again?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I just want clarification. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, do I hear a motion?
Madam President, I have a motion.
Mr. Longoria?
Motion to approve the teacher and mentor stipend to be paid out twice a year, December and May.
Do I hear a second? Second by Ms. Ostiguin. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6 is discussion and possible action to approve proposed superintendent's performance goals for the 16-17 school year. Dr. Cervelli.
Proud member of the board, as everyone knows, every year the board approves performance goals for the superintendent to try to reach, and the superintendent's evaluation is based on these performance goals. We sent this out, I believe, on Friday. It's very similar to what you had previously, what you evaluated the superintendent on previously. We did make a few changes, and I'll point those out. I know one of the things that there was a little bit of confusion was in reference to a 2% increase versus 2 percentage points. We've converted this to 2 percentage points, so it's easier to read and understand. So if last year's results were 64 and it calls for 2 percentage points increase, that would be 66. And so we've tried to clarify that throughout the instrument. Let me just go through this real quick, and I said most of the goals are the same. The metrics have changed a little bit. On the customer satisfaction surveys throughout the various departments, you might recall that the overall goal was 90% satisfaction. Some were much lower than that, others were closer to that, but not quite there. So what we've done here that's different is that in those type of surveys, we basically have identified that as a 3-year goal, within 3 years get to 90%. And the goal for this coming year, on a per department basis, will vary based on where you're at. And that says you got to gain 1/3 of that difference every year till you get to 90. So the closer you are to 90, the smaller the gain that's required of you. The further away you are, the more of a gain you'll have to have. So those were changed that way. The same is true for attendance. We've identified the attendance goal for elementary at 97%, middle school 96%, and high school 95%. To get to those levels within 2 years, depending on where a school is right now, they'll gain 1/3 of that difference every year till they get to that point. Let me see what else. On page 8, we talked a little bit about administrative cost ratio. We identify that to be that the administrative cost ratio will be less than or equal to 10% of the instructional expenditures. This is the standard that is established in the first report in order to get the maximum score in that particular category. Also on page 8 at the bottom, as it pertains to accounts payable, it's a vendor satisfaction survey. For whatever reason, this past year, the survey was not conducted. So this coming year, we'll establish a baseline. This is, we'll conduct a survey, and whatever those scores are, we'll determine, that will be the baseline.
First, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the surveys that you're going to be conducting, when throughout the year does this happen?
It's actually towards the very end of the year.
Very end.
Yes, ma'am. Usually May and June. May, okay, mostly May.
I would like to see the results of the survey when they come back.
When they come back, certainly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I hope the other board members would like to have them as well.
Okay. And then, I think on page 11, communication standards, performance standards. I think previously we had not identified specific standards for the communications department, and we've identified those for this coming year. The retention rate for teachers, we've identified that as both at the district level as well as the campus level, that it will improve by 10%. And I believe that concludes the changes to what,
Board members, any questions? Ms. O'Higgins?
I read this and I'm in agreement with it except for when it came to the attendance.
Okay?
The middle school, it says, we want to meet the 3-year goal to have a 96%. Two of those campuses already have 96. And so that doesn't challenge them for the next 3 years.
Okay, so I think what we might want to say is, and we'll modify it, either get to 96% or a minimum of a 0.3% increase, either one.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, we talked about it, I'm not sure why we didn't put it in, we didn't talk about it. Yeah, it's a 0.3 increase per year, or hit 96, or 97, or 95, whatever. I got it.
Thank you.
We'll change that.
Okay, any other questions? If there's none, do I hear a motion?
Mr. Bohan, that's...
These are interpretive questions, just for the purpose of the record, in terms of that. On page 7, and this recurs in the Performance Center curriculum instruction, you said increased by 3 percentage points, and there's a bracket, 84%. What that interprets as is to 84%, is that correct?
Yeah, go up to 84.
Okay.
That's
And
correct.
so when there's a bracket, the percentage, what that means is that's the new
That's the
absolute percentage,
That's
that's the target.
That's the new
Just for
target.
purposes of that.
That's correct.
There's a little bit different if I look at page 11. Hang on a second. 12. Right? District and campus administration will approve a teacher retention rate by 10%. And let's put an example. If the teacher retention rate last year was 90%, then the 10% increase would be 9%?
Yeah, 99, yes.
That's a pretty stern standard in terms of what's out there, okay? In terms of what's out there. So if the teacher rate was more than 91% last year, it's impossible to meet that standard as you have articulated it. I'm just saying.
I believe the retention rate last year was, I believe, 86%, if I recall correctly. I think it was about 14% that we lost.
Yes.
So it was about 86%.
But if I'm not trying to argue the
No,
facts,
no,
I'm just trying to get the terms straight. If I take 86% and I increase that by 10%, that's 8.6%. So you're going from 86% to a requirement the next year of 94.6%.
So,
Is that your intent?
Probably not.
because this will be reflecting,
I think Mrs. Estrada has a question.
So this will be reflecting, the next time this is given for this year, correct? We already know we've lost quite a few teachers, so I would think it would be wise to have it at that percentage.
What's your question?
This
This is for next year, next
Yes,
summer.
yeah, so we'll be evaluating you on what happened this year, correct?
Yeah, what happens is,
We've lost
we'll
quite a
measure,
few.
we'll measure this, we will measure this next summer, next June or so, when we know, who's left and so forth.
Right.
But I agree with Mr. O'Hanlon that I don't believe the intention was to improve it 10%.
I would suspect you probably want to reduce the leaver rate by 10%.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what, the attrition rate or whatever it is, if that's what you're doing, I would think, but you could have higher aspirations.
So
I
let's,
just don't want to get into an argument about it when we do that.
so yeah, if we will change the word retention to leaver, I think we're good.
It's up to you. I mean,
Is that under
but-
retention performance standard? On page 12?
Yes, on page 12 at the very top,
Mm-hmm.
it would read, district and campus administration will improve the teacher leaver rate by 10%. So the leaver rate this past year was 14%. And you improve it by lowering it by 1.4 percentage points at that point. Yeah.
So you're changing it to 1.4%?
If you can just note that in there so that we can remember that
Yeah.
when we're
I will.
evaluating you next year.
Yeah, I will. I will.
He's gonna leave it and just change the word, correct?
No, but if you could.
We
put
basically
that-
changed the word from retention to leaver. Okay. Thank you, Rolando.
Any other questions? Okay, if there are none, do I hear a
I don't
motion?
want to get into argument. Strong motion.
Mr. Longoria?
To approve the superintendent's performance goals for the 2016-2017 school year.
I have a motion by Mr. Longoria, do I hear a second? A second by Ms. Estrada, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 7, discussion and possible action to permit the superintendent to serve as an NAEP ambassador and receive corresponding compensation. Dr. Severi.
Mr. Brown, members of the board, this is the same request I brought to the board, I believe, last February, if I recall correctly, where I was asked to serve as a NAEP ambassador, being asked to do that again. As a matter of information, what I put in there, I think when the board approved this back in February, at that time I estimated that I might be using approximately 15 of my leave days to accomplish that. As it turns out, I ended up using only about 8 of those days. And the primary reason is because many of these trips were actually over the summer on those Fridays when we were off, so I did not use company time at that time.
Do you anticipate that changing any?
No, ma'am, I anticipate that this should be about the number. I mean, could be 10, but I don't know the exact number. It just depends on when I can schedule these visits.
All right, do I hear a motion, board members?
Motion.
Mr. Longoria?
I have a motion to permit the superintendent to serve as a NAEP ambassador and receive corresponding compensation.
Right. I have a second by Ms. Madla, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. That concludes our discussion of possible action. Now we will go into closed session. Closed session pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Texas Government Code 551.071, 551.072, 551.074, 551.076, 551.082, and 551.0821. 1, discussion concerning personnel matters pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, and 2, consultation with attorney and discussion and possible action regarding the PEA Special Accreditation Investigation number 2014-01-010 forensic audit report, and number 3, consultation with attorney, discussion, and possible action regarding superintendent's evaluation. The time is now 8:14. The board will reconvene into open session. The time is 9:10. There's no action on items number 1 and number 2. Item number 3 is consultation with attorney and discussion and possible action regarding the superintendent's evaluation. Do I hear a motion?
Ms. Parlow, I make a motion
Yes, Mr. Moore.
to approve the superintendent's evaluation as presented in closed session.
I second.
Motion by Mr. Longoria, seconded by Ms. Ostini. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Do I hear a motion to adjourn? I have a motion and a second to adjourn. The time is 9:11.
A record. It's a record time.